So anyway, this is a meeting of the Martin County Concerned Citizens, and I'm hoping that we've gotten everybody's information to, if you want to be a part of the Concerned Citizens group. But if not, I can pass around a paper, and if we don't have your information, you can sign up for the Concerned Citizens group.
What kind of information do you need?
Not live.
Okay, so name, email address, if we can get a hold of you, email, phone number. Yeah.
Email's best if you've got it. That's the way we.
That way we can send out a whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, I've got two. I'll get the one I don't get the less ads in. That way I can get two.
About half that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so tonight we have Mary Cromer. Some of y'all probably already met her. She's from the Appalachian Citizens Law Center, and she's the one that's helping us out with getting all this together. And then we also have two people from the UK, and I'm going to let Mary explain, and probably them, exactly what the UK people are going to try to help us with.
Great, thanks, Nina. Yeah, so, again, I'm Mary Cromer with Appalachian Citizens Law Center in Whitesburg. I did remember to bring cards this time, so I've said before in meetings that if you all have any questions or anything, please feel free to email me or call me at any time. But I actually have my cards with my email address and phone number, so that's more helpful, hopefully. So just let me know if you want a card. The point of tonight's meeting is to let you all know about work that we've been doing with these folks from UK Public Health on they're trying to get a grant to do some studies of the water at taps, to find out a little bit more about what's coming out of your all's taps, and to look at some health information, to do surveys. And they're going to tell you a lot more about this, to do some surveys, randomly selected surveys in the county to find out some of the health concerns. I want you all to know, this is probably the sixth meeting that we've had. Everyone that I've talked to believes that there are real health concerns, and we do believe that probably they're related to the water here, and that there's some significant problems with the water system, and we just want you to know that there are people who are taking this seriously. I believe that the Public Service Commission is taking it seriously. I think that we heard that at the last meeting, that the commissioners, I believe, were really affected. I wanted to thank you all, those of you who spoke at the meeting, and especially those of you all who've written letters to the Public Service Commission. I just went through all of those letters yesterday and read them again, and I put them into a binder and highlighted, and I had tears. I mean, it's really moving that you all are speaking out and the things that you've had to go through, and it's really, I think, having an effect. So it's an incremental process. There's not ever going to be, one silver bullet that's going to fix this for this community, but little by little, I'm hoping that, these things that we are doing are going to bring about change. So the point of tonight is to hear from Dr. Sanderson and Dr. Unrein about some things that UK Public Health may be able to do in the community to sort of look at the problems that you all are having. So I'll just turn it over to you all.
Sure. So my name is Jason Unrein. I'm actually with the College of Agriculture, Food and Environment.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been saying that, yes.
I'm an environmental toxicologist. And so I specialize in going out and measuring contaminants in the environment. I've done work out in eastern Kentucky with drinking water before, with metals. And so I've put together a pilot grant along with Dr. Sanderson to come and do some work out in this community. I don't know, should we just introduce ourselves first and then talk about what it is and what the pilot grant is?
And I'm Wayne Sanderson. I'm also with University of Kentucky. I'm with the College of Public Health. I'm an epidemiologist, so I focus on causes of disease and how to prevent them. I'm also an environmental scientist, so I do a lot of sampling of, I'll be doing analysis for fecal coliforms, but we do sample collection and analysis for a wide variety of things in our work. In this particular case, we'll tell you about the study that we're proposing to do. We're pretty optimistic that it'll be funded. It's not a big study, it's a pilot grant that we can use to at least get enough information that we might write a larger grant that could be more extensive. Did you want to talk about the grant?
Yeah, so we submitted a letter of intent to submit a full proposal for a pilot grant. It's fairly small, but it would enable us to go out and conduct a survey to sort of quantify some of the health effects in the community, and then obtain drinking water samples from a small number of homes to start out with at the tap to measure for certain disinfection byproducts, which I guess has been a concern that's been identified here, metals, fecal coliform, and so forth. Now this would be fairly limited in scope to start out with, but if we can take that information and use that to generate more interest for a larger grant, doing a broader study of potentially more contaminants and include more homes in the study. So my role in the study is really to manage the overall study and to conduct the chemical analysis of the drinking water samples. One of the things that we'd like to do is involve some members of the local community in collecting those samples and conducting the surveys. So that's sort of my role in it. And then Wayne will talk a little bit more, I guess, about the survey. So there are certain types of diseases that we can get information from public records, but others that we'd have to conduct a survey. So.
Right, I mean, when it comes to cancer, the Kentucky Cancer Registry is really a fabulous resource. In fact, you can go online and look at the Kentucky Cancer Registry and pick a cancer, pick a range of years, and you can look and see what Martin County's rates are. You can pick any cancer you want. So we probably won't need to ask questions about that because in Kentucky our registry is so good. We're coming really, really close to identifying 100% of the cancers that occur in the state every year. So the focus of the study, we already have that data. The focus of the questionnaire that people would be administered is not going to be on cancer, it's going to be more on other effects. And so whenever you're talking about contaminated water, it's going to be mostly gastrointestinal or urinary tract. So digestive system and the urinary system are the concerns. So it'd be things like kidney disease, bladder infections, things like that, irritable bowel, diverticulitis. Those would be the diseases that we would want to quantify. We'd also want to know things like how long you've lived in the county, water consumption, residence. So it would be something that would probably take no more, I'm guessing, than about 15 or 20 minutes to answer. We've talked about it. It would be probably an in-home, in-person questionnaire. And it would be where not everybody, because we don't have the money to do a sample of everybody, but we would like to do your tap water sample. That's one of the concerns we have is there's been extensive testing at the plant, and we have records for that. But the concern is there's probably at least 2 to 4 distribution points that they have been collecting samples. Is that correct? But it doesn't appear, at least we don't have data on in-home sampling. And so our concern is if something is occurring post-treatment at the plant, and before it gets to your home, then we need to do testing at the tap. And so there would be a subset of the people that participate in the study would get in-home sampling. This would be analyzed for the most part. I'll let Jesse talk more about the details because he's an expert in metals analysis. He would do a broad spectrum of metals. I would look at fecal coliform contamination, and then we'd have to send it off for these trihalomethanes and chloroacetic acids that are disinfection compounds. You may have heard about that in the news, or it's actually on the back of your water bill. It says that the plant's been out of compliance with that. We'd have to send those off because we don't really have the expertise within our labs to do that. So I guess the purpose of this tonight is to tell you about this and gauge the receptivity of the community in participating in such a study. It wouldn't be our intent to do a convenience sample and just taking volunteers. We'd probably pick some distribution lines and randomly select people. But as Jason said, it would be nice to have people within the community who would help us administer this, rather than us having to come down, and being residents here in the community, have people collect that data for us and get the samples to the proper labs for analysis.
Yeah, so, one other thing that I just wanted to sort of talk about is that we will be here to do science and, document what's in the water and what the health effects are and make some sort of interpretation of those results. But we're not here to, do any, we can try to identify the problems, but we're not here to, advocate or, we can't, come in and change the way the system's run. That's more of a legal and political question. But what we can do is come in as an unbiased outside party and document, what's going on. So.
And the results would be shared in this way.
Yeah.
The individuals who give us water for sampling get their individual results. But then there would be a composite report. We wouldn't identify the people who participated in the study, nor give their individual results to the community. That's their results. But there would be a summary, a composite of the data, and would say things like, hey, we found this, we didn't find this, and that report is public domain. We're public servants. This money is being fed, this grant would be funded by the federal government. So anybody can have access to that de-identified data, taking the personal names off of it, of course, but could have access to that data and certainly access to our reports. And so it's something that could be used as a tool to guide governmental public intervention.
And assuming that you all get the funding for this, when would you all be doing this?
Yeah, around the first of the year is when we get started. We're pretty confident. We submitted a letter of intent, which is just sort of a couple pages on what our ideas, and we've got a pretty good score on that. So we're pretty confident that we'll be invited to submit a full proposal, which is due in October next month. And I think the decisions will be by December. And as soon as we get the decision, we'll get started as soon as possible. We would probably want to organize some sessions for more in deep, more focused discussions about what your all's concerns are and what you think are the most important things to focus on in our study. So that would be one of the first things that we would need to do.
And that wouldn't need to be random. That would probably be, depending on what the concern level of people were and the diversity of concerns would be. So for example, we would construct a proposal, a protocol, and I would have a draft questionnaire, and then we would have somebody come down and meet with probably a group of 10 or 12 people. And if there was more concern, we might do 2 groups. And that would be where you would sit in a session. It's relatively unstructured. It's structured, but it's the opportunity for people to say, well, I looked at this questionnaire and you didn't ask anything about this. And then it would be our opportunity to say, well, yeah, but we shouldn't worry about that because that really is a disease or a concern that's not related to water quality. Or, oh my gosh, we didn't even think of that. There's people concerned about this, and of course, there's plenty of information that indicates this should be a concern based on what we already know. So those would be the first step. We would convene at least 1 or 2 groups of a few people. Again, that doesn't have to be random. That could be people who just have been involved in this issue and are concerned, and say, hey, they're almost like an advisory group, that we would recommend that you consider this. And then the study would probably start early next year sometime. Yeah. Might not get off the ground until Marches, but we would probably get the funding early in January or February, and we could get started on the study relatively immediately after that.
And so we would probably need to complete the study within a few months. Yeah. And then the hope is that we can take those results and use them to apply for a much larger grant from the federal government. And the program that I had in mind for that is something called Research to Action. So that grant program specifically focuses on university scientists working with the local community together to not only document the problems, but come up, identify potential solutions to those problems. So that would be a much larger project.
That would be a project where we'd actually try and get funding for interventions.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even speculate at this time on what the interventions would be, or where there would be a community advisory group to let's try this and see if our data indicates might be a good solution. Let's try it, and then we evaluate to see how effective that intervention was.
so if I can just sort of recap, what they're talking about would be sort of two big steps. One is in the fall, we would hope to have focus group meetings. They would have a draft questionnaire that would have, questions about your water use and questions about health. And we would get a meeting of maybe 10 to 12 of you all, or if there are more people who are interested, maybe 2 meetings. And we'd sort of just go over the questionnaire and see if it makes sense, and see if there are questions, you all know what's going on in the community, so see if there are entire lines of questioning that have been missed. And then after that, they would use that information from the focus group, take it back and sort of redo the questionnaire, see if, revise it as needed. And then in maybe January, February, or March, we said March, if the funding is available, then that's when they would be coming out, or actually probably someone from the community, we need to figure out who's going to administer it, would be coming out into people's homes, randomly selected homes, to do tap testing and to ask the questions that are in this questionnaire. And then all of that data would go back to UK, you all would analyze it, and probably have it back to the community in a couple of months. So you're talking about May or June next year, you would have final data. If you had water tap testing done at your home, you would get those results. So you would know exactly what they found in your water. But otherwise, we would have a report that would reflect what they found in the whole community. And then the hope is that would be step 1, and then they can move on to potentially more in-depth studies later on. So do you all have any questions, I guess? And actually, let me back up and say one thing. So the important part about all of this, and the reason we wanted to have a special meeting of Martin County Concerned Citizens to talk about it's going to take your all's commitment and your cooperation. So it's going to require that we have folks in the community who are willing to come to a focus group meeting that might be an hour or 2 long to really talk through and hash out all of these issues and make sure they're developing the most robust questionnaire that they can. And then 2, even more importantly probably, that people in the community are going to be willing to let folks either from UK or people they hire here to administer the test come into their homes and give this questionnaire and take the tap water samples. So that's really why, this is a cooperative effort. This isn't just something that scientists are doing in Lexington and they're going to get back to us. It really requires the community's support. So that's why we wanted to introduce them to you all now and sort of have this meeting. So having said that, I'll open it up.
We also wanted to make sure that it is going to be for the people who are on the city water.
Right. This is focused on the Martin County Water District water.
We won't be testing well water. I mean, that might be a nice service for that person, but that doesn't answer the question. The question really is the Martin County water that people are receiving, the municipal water, the county water, is that causing health effects? So it doesn't do us any good to take a bunch of well water samples and say, hey, your well's contaminated, or hey, your well water's great. We only want to be including people who are on the Martin County water system for their drinking, bathing, cooking.
I got a question. I have well water, but my children go to, or my grandkids, I call it my children, they go to Martin County schools. I have one grandson. When he drinks the water, he gets sick because during the summer months, he's not sick. And I'm taking a log of, the sick times and not sick times. All summer long, he's fine. But into the first week of school, not even the first week, he didn't have bottled water. He started drinking the water. He became sick. Now, my grandson, he's had an endoscopy and a colonoscopy, and his child was only 9 years old. They found nothing wrong with him. And when they did the questionnaire, they asked about the home. And they didn't think outside the box what his activities were, while he was sick. And, it's kind of like, the way I look at it, and I'm a grandmother, it's kind of like, you may get a cold more than I do. It all depends on your immune system. Some children may get sick a little bit. But my grandson, due to him being raised on well water, then drinking the city water, becoming sick, that's a concern to me. I don't know what, and I'm kind of curious about algae. When you say byproducts and all this, is algae in there? Because I do know when I talked to my brother, who is a pediatrician, you know, algae can make a child sick. You know, it could be toxic if that's in the, you know, in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting samples from the schools would be a really good thing. I'm not sure exactly how we go about doing that, but
Walk in the doors.
yeah.
And they do have fountains with filters, but it doesn't filter out chemicals. You
Yeah.
know, so I think we should take it out of the filtered fountain.
Gina, as a board member in District 1, I feel like there's no problem with this survey including all of our schools.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking all of them.
High
Yeah.
schools are there altogether?
High schools, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we've got high
you've only got one
schools on
high
city water.
school,
Okay.
you've only got one middle school, and then
Oh.
there's 3 elementary.
Okay.
And I don't see any problem with that myself, and I don't see how you'd have any problem with any of the other board members. I would be very surprised if they
Yeah. Well, I mean,
objected to their water
was
being
a
tested,
concern.
because we want to know.
Yeah, well, last time I had brought it up, I thought you thought I was, I mean, you took offense. It seemed to me, that was my thought, you took
No,
offense.
no.
I'm not blaming the Board of Education,
Sure.
I'm not blaming anybody, but, you know, I'm a grandmother.
Sure.
And I love my family and I love my community.
Well,
and
there's
I
no-
believe that's my job, to take care of people I love and the place I care for. That's what I do.
There's no problem
Yeah.
between you and I, there's no problem. I don't
Yeah,
think
okay,
there'd be
I
any
just didn't
problem.
want you to be offended.
No, no. It takes a lot more. My thin's real thick. I've lived here for too long.
Yeah, but I'm not
All my
blaming the
life.
board, it's just, you know, we need the city water, it's in the
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
I would be curious as to how you will, or whether you will, or whether it's on your plan, your scheme of things, to routinely sample the water at the river, where it's the intake. I mean,
Yeah, so,
what I would like to know is what's in this water before it comes in, and then it, as I understand it, it dumps into a pond up here, a reservoir. I would be curious after it comes out of the river, and I'd like to test it from the pond, and then you know what's going into the plant.
yeah.
And then I'd like to know what comes out of the plant. And then I'd like to know what comes out somewhere
Yeah.
else.
I think for the initial pilot study, because it's not a lot of money, we would have to focus mainly on what's coming out of the tap. And then if we could get more funding for a larger study or a different grant, we could address some of those other things.
Well, I think we can still take a few samples from
Yeah.
the river.
All you have to do is just
Yeah,
leave it out.
But not like routine.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it
no,
wouldn't
no.
be routine.
Yeah,
No.
one thing that I should point out as kind of a limitation of this is that if we go and take one sample from your house on a certain day, the contaminant levels can go up and down
Yeah.
at different points in time. So this is just sort of like an initial screen, and then if we get more money, then we can go and test at different time points.
During the study, we
Yeah.
took a reservoir
Yeah.
sample tonight.
Yeah, we took-
And during the study, we would take a river sample, reservoir
Yeah.
sample,
Good.
and various tap samples, but we're not gonna be equipped to set up a routine sampling program. That can't happen with this study.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go back to the administration, administering. Who's actually the authority in administering
Administering what?
the test?
Oh, we are.
Yeah,
We're the head.
Okay, you're in control, and you pick, as I understand what was said, you're gonna pick X number of people to assist. Well, yeah.
Random, yeah.
Okay, what's the protocol on making the test? I mean, who's gonna go get the water out of the river? Who's gonna get the water out of the pond? That's part of the program?
Yeah, that'll be part of the program that we haven't fully decided, whether it's gonna be somebody local or whether it'll be somebody from UK, but that's where you can give input. If you think that, I mean, this is a small group, there's about 10,000 people in Martin County. If you said, hey, the best way to do this is to hire somebody locally to administer your questionnaire and to collect the samples, and we're eager to hear that kind of feedback. Or if you said, hey, if you send some students down from UK, people will open their homes, they'll let people in. Or if you said, no, nobody's going to want to do this study, because they're afraid of any repercussions, and so you're just wasting your time. You're going to get 30 people to participate in your study. That's the kind of information we can learn tonight.
Well, I can tell you that I'm the director of the local health department, and we'll go ahead and commit tonight to having some personnel that can help out. I doubt seriously we could completely administer it by ourselves, but as long as we could get some cooperation with UK, I think we could be a big help to you in that area. We already have concerned citizens groups organized that we work with to help us set our agenda for the upcoming year. And we can give you access to them. I have environmentalists on staff and access to others where we could take, where we could work with them. So depending on what can be worked out, I'll go ahead and commit that we'll work with you on this program.
And if you want to send a student, I will open up my home. I have plenty of room. They like home cooked meals. I feed everybody. Hey, I don't have a problem. I'll give you my address and phone number. I will open up my home to anybody that wants to test.
On this water sampling thing,
Yeah.
if you don't know what's coming into the plant, how can you filter and chemically treat this stuff? You have to know what's coming in, so you'll know how to adjust the plant to treat this stuff. So, just throwing a bunch of chemicals and filters in there ain't gonna solve the problem. You've got to know what's coming in.
Yeah.
Can a water plant,
That's the problem.
can a water plant, a big old water plant filter out the formaldehydes and the bromides and all the other chemicals? Does a water plant, an ordinary water plant, filter the chemicals out? The carcinogenic chemicals, does it filter them out?
It can to an extent. There are certain chemicals that are more resistant to being broken down. It's not really like a filter, like you think of like a filter. It's actually there are bacteria in the
Well, the bacteria
in the wastewater treatment plant. But then in the drinking water treatment plant, they remove all the particulates and things like that. They have chemical treatment to get rid of bacteria, which is primarily what they do. As far as I don't know what their engineering setup is at this plant, but there are filters that can take out activated carbon that can take out some of those chemicals and things like that. But and without seeing
Without
what
the system,
yeah.
But you raise a good point. I mean, that's why twofold. I mean, when Jason does analysis for metals, so for example, there are municipalities in this country that have very high arsenic levels. Has nothing to do with anything anybody did wrong. It's just that the rock layer has very high concentrations of arsenic. So when the plant brings in the arsenic, it sends it out through the pipes. The arsenic is still there. They didn't filter it out, so the people are drinking heavy concentrations of arsenic. That's a big problem because arsenic is a carcinogen. But there are other things where it could be that, hey, the plant didn't detect it. It's not in the plant water, and every water company in the country is supposed to submit analysis for certain things, and arsenic, of course, would be one. But there could be situations where the plant didn't detect anything, but then once it gets to the home, either it's in the system or it could be in the pipes, the old pipes that people have in their homes that had a lot of lead is a good example. Sometimes they see no lead at the plant, but somebody has a house that was built back in the 1920s, has lead pipes, they have high lead concentrations. So that's why it's important for us to be able to analyze things that are actually at people's homes, which I think it's a contribution that this study would make. I don't think that's been done in Martin County yet. There's a lot of in-home water testing. So,
I mean, one of the problems is so it seems like a lot of the water leaks out of the system. So even if the water in the plant has been treated properly and passes all of the water quality standards, once it goes out to the system, if the pipes are leaking, contaminants from people's septic tanks and things like that can get in. I've read about reports of just like soil getting in the water, basically. So that's why it's important to get out to the individual homes.
I mean, our water, a lot of people on farther away have brown water. It's obvious that dirt's getting in.
Yeah. And when they don't flush out the system regularly,
Flush it.
what can happen is bacteria grow on the inside of the pipes, And they're not necessarily, those bacteria that grow on the inside of the pipes, they're not necessarily harmful in of themselves. But when the chlorine that they use to treat the water reacts with those bacteria, it creates these, what we call disinfection byproducts.
The paper stated that Martin County here has a 60% plus loss of water. How in the world can you flush something if you ain't got the water to flush it with?
Yeah.
And
that, that's something that us as health scientists, we can't really address that.
Yeah, I know that.
What we can do is kind of document what the consequences of that are.
Yeah.
And arm you with the information.
Yeah, I mean, they will produce, hopefully they'll produce a scientific report, and they'll have data that, for each home where they test water, there'll be data specific to that home. And what we do with that is up to us, I think. I mean, depending on what it shows, we may be able to use that to really be able to push for a better, quicker solution, let's put it that way.
Which is what that bigger
with that
grant
data, then they
helped
can give suggestions to the county to fix the problems with.
Well, that would be our role. That would be the citizens group's role and other
With the data they provide. That's what I'm saying.
They will provide the report.
We'll give you the information.
What is done with it is up to the
It'll be
community.
ammunition.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the results will be,
Right.
We're just gonna give them to you and,
Right.
I mean, there are engineers at UK that are specially trained in drinking water treatment, wastewater treatment, things like that. And when we get down to that point, they could probably provide their expertise into helping, recommendations for what needs to be fixed.
And I've also got a question. I've heard a lot about Wolf Creek, I've heard a lot about Inez, but I have not heard about, in my district that I live, is Grassy and Rock House and Tomahawk area. They're rural areas, and I do know that I think the lines have been flushed once, probably in about 10 years. A neighbor that lives seen it. And I think that should be studied as well, as in that, but I've heard a lot about, like Wolf Creek and all these.
Yeah.
Now, Tomahawk and Grassy and areas like that,
Yeah.
they need to be tested as
See,
well.
that's one thing that we will definitely need your all's help is identifying
Yeah,
like what areas seem to be the problem areas, and what
yeah,
we'd like to do is take sort of the map of the distribution system
Yeah.
and break it down into parts, and then within each one of those parts, sample randomly close and far from
yeah.
the
And
treatment
then,
plant.
like I said, you send students, it's right there, my home's right in the middle of it, y'all. I can feed them, take care of them, and they have their own room with television.
Okay, whenever y'all find out that certain things have caused illnesses from the water, like me, myself, I've got diverticulitis, I have spinal cord cancer, 2 different types, astrocytoma and glioma, and the water clearly states that it affects your central nervous system, and it states that it bothers your stomach, this and that. So when you find out, hey, your water caused that, what about us? I'm going to die with this.
Well, that's one thing that, just like they're saying, they're going to collect the data. And they can't necessarily say this caused that, but they're going to collect the data. And then it's up to us as the concerned citizens to then go and say, okay, something has to be done.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm here for.
And that's what we're,
Well, they're going to, through us, they're going to reach a conclusion on what's in the water, and then the other boys there in UK is going to make a determination as to how the plant may cure it, or the lines or what have you. Is that not the summary of it?
I mean, that's a possibility, yeah.
Possibility. They would make the recommendation.
Yeah.
This is the sorts of things.
Yeah, based on the criteria.
down the road.
I mean, we have a water research institute that has engineers that specialize in operating, drinking water systems that advise
That's how you
communities.
get a correction cost.
Yeah, so, but the two of us, our job is to document the health effects
Well, I'll
that
be
are out here.
willing to be part of the study.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I'm alive.
Can I ask you a question? Are you Bessie Morton?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Bessie,
She's right here.
yeah. I'm here also.
oh, you're there, okay.
Yeah.
Bessie, could you tell what you told the PSC?
I hadn't told anybody what I told them, but I did. I filled it out and I sent the letter.
It's online.
There has been I think it's 53 people in my neighborhood that I know. Now, there's probably more, but 53 people that is either living with cancer or have died. I think 34 of them have already died from the cancer. And just all around my neighborhood, you can't walk a half a mile without 5 to 6 people that either have it, living with it, or have died from it. And all 8 there's 8 people in my area there that are my family that either have diverticulitis, Crohn's, gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, I've been hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer, gastritis, and a high hiatal hernia myself. He's got diverticulitis. His dad has diverticulitis. His wife has irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, these are things, both of his kids sick. The little boy already on ran to die, you know. It's just, there has to be something.
Well, that's what I was saying with me having well water, and then my grandson, who was in not even a week of school, he had issues, and he calls them stinky burps. They're sulfur burps, and he continues to vomit and have diarrhea. Now, through those summer months, he is not sick, not even a sulfur burp until he starts school. Now, it could be, I seen the salads. They're washing the salads with city water. You know, what he's consuming at lunch. You know, when he runs out of bottled water, he will drink out of the fountain. This is what I was saying.
Gina, what people don't realize is when your child wants a Happy Meal and you drive around McDonald's, if you buy them a Pepsi, that Pepsi comes directly out of the tap. People don't realize that. If you get them a sweet tea, that tea comes directly out of the tap.
That's why
people don't know that. They think, oh, he got a Pepsi or a 7-Up or whatever.
That's why I mentioned I have well water, because it affects me. I mean, I'm healthy as a horse. The dog, like I was telling Vicki just now, I'm 57 years old. I'm on no medicine. I am a smoker, but I'm healthy as doctors just are amazed with my health. But this is the same water I was raised on. Then and then when my kids go to school, they're sick. When they're home and don't have to go to school, they're fine. So that raises a red flag. It touches everybody in this county, not just the city water, the well water if you have a child in school. You know, that's my point. It touches me as well.
I have a question. Nikki and Nina, when they test, I think they live in the same area as you, don't they, Jamie? Bessie.
That Middle Fork?
Yeah.
I live on Blackberry Road.
Honey, Blackberry Road, everybody
See,
on
that's
this
where,
side.
within a fourth of a mile, you've got like 8 people that have died.
Yeah, maybe a hot.
There was
There
Molly
has to be
Matthews,
something
Jimmy Kerr,
within a
Tony
fourth of a
Kerr,
mile that,
Eddie Lowe, Dale Robinson,
plus they got the
He
stomach
is on Blackberry
problems and all
Road.
that.
Tim Robbins.
8 of them.
Tim
My friend
Robinson,
Jeremy,
Within a fourth of a
Jeremy
mile.
Cook's right there in Hunter's Ranch.
Chemical
Hunter's Ranch Road, about 11 or 12 people,
My
and
mother
a half a mile go down to Hunter's Ranch.
See what I'm saying? It's a system. It's a system.
Now he's got spinal cord. Freeman Cook has got prostate cancer. His son's got cancer just all throughout his body. I know one of her that's got bladder cancer. There's now Molly, I know she died of lung cancer, but it's all sorts of cancer, just all sorts.
It's scary.
I just wonder if that'd be an area that you all could test.
Well, you know, I was saying, okay, I've got 50-some neighbors that have died or living with it. 2 years ago, my sister-in-law and her brother were both in the funeral home at the same time with cancer. They're from up on Tomahawk.
Yeah.
Their pastor's wife, cancer. Yeah, that's up on Tomahawk. I mean, these are people that I know. I know 4 people up Long Branch that's got cancer. I know one at Milo. I know, I mean, if you just sit down and put your brain to it, if people would just look around, the county is dying.
My father-in-law died of colon cancer. Now my mother-in-law has been diagnosed with diverticulitis. And they've had city water. They had well water, but had too much sulfur. Only hooks up on the city water years ago. And then all of a sudden, my father-in-law, 10, 15 years or whatever, finds out he passed away with colon cancer.
Is there any way we could do, I mean, I know you can't do that many water tests, but a more broader test on survey?
We can do, the survey we can do a lot more of. The thing with the water testing is it's very expensive, so we'll have to do a subset of those. Another thing that I should point out that's sort of a limitation is that particularly for the cancers, they take a long time to develop, sometimes 10 or 20 years or more. And we're going to be testing now, but that doesn't mean that you weren't exposed to something in the past. So I want to make that very clear.
I think it's catching up
So we
from
can,
the past.
we can evaluate what the current status of the composition of the water is, but that doesn't mean that people weren't exposed before when there wasn't testing.
Well, would the test involve, would the test involve, say, you pinpoint when we start having issues, and we still have children, and probably young people like my son's age, 30, and test them to see how their development was because the mother consumed city water while she was pregnant.
Yeah, so one of the things that we probably would like to look at is birth defects. And I think we talked about sampling within the household, collecting information on everyone within that household, including the children. So,
While you're sampling, you're going to inquire as to whether or not anybody.
yeah, that was, we always ask that.
We call that confounders.
Yeah, there's certain things that you would always have to ask like that.
We'll probably also ask some questions about general diet as well.
What about the long-term effects on the chemicals that they are putting in?
I'm sorry.
The long-term effects of the chemicals that they are putting in the water.
After y'all read the long-term effects, after you've been exposed.
You mean like chlorine?
Yeah, well, whatever they put in.
Yeah, usually it's not the chlorine itself, it's the chlorine reacts with junk that's in the lines or, that comes in that they don't remove before they disinfect the water. So that's what the disinfection byproducts are. And those are definitely associated with certain health effects. So that's a major thing that we want to focus on. Because we know that that's going to...
What?
Chlorine? Is chlorine all they put in the water?
They use flocculants and things like that too to get rid of the particles that are in the water. So
there could be extra lime added or other flocculants that added to reduce any organic or particulate type of matter to get that to settle out.
Now,
flocculants typically are not considered health effects. They're more flocculants. If they're going to do something to you, it's more likely the things that will clog up filters or damage appliances or clog up your lines too. Particularly if you don't have a lot of pressure. You got a lot of stagnant water in the lines that can begin to coalesce and tighten up your pipes, just like clogging your arteries in your heart. So that's more of that effect. The chlorine chemicals, as Jason was saying, react with organic material. So somebody mentioned algae. If you have a lot of algae or you have a lot of leaf detritus that's dissolved in the water, and you hit that with chlorine, then it forms these chemicals that EPA tries to control, and because they're known carcinogens.
So I mean, they have to add the chlorine to get rid of the bacteria, the fecal coliform bacteria, but it also creates these compounds, so it's like a balancing act. And if everything's not working exactly as it should, it's very difficult to balance those things. To disinfect the water but not create these byproducts.
Well, wouldn't broken line, okay, we're losing water. That's what they're saying, we're losing. If you have a water leak, wouldn't that surface water seep down into that pipe?
It could.
And then that pushed with the chemicals they're treating at the water plant, push through your home. So this means you could be getting algae.
Yeah, that's one of the
You
things we're
could be
concerned
getting
about.
feces. I mean, it's no different if I took a cup of water pretty much and drank it out of the ditch line.
Yeah, so that's the exact reason why we want to sample in actual people's homes and not
Okay, that's.
like out at,
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be
the main,
detected at the
the
plant.
water
Yeah.
mains.
If we took a sample at the plant, we wouldn't find it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, cause see, like when I hear all this, like I said, I'm just plain old country folks, I kinda like to have to dummy it down for myself. So that's the reason why I asked, 'cause
Yeah.
if you've got, I mean, to me, if you've got bad pipes, it comes out, seeps back in and it's pushed.
Yeah, if it's not all
Yeah.
sealed up, contaminants can get in.
That's exactly.
And that's
Now,
one of the
if you
reasons why they
wanna-
put like extra chlorine. They want to make sure that there's chlorine all the way to the tap in case anything does get in.
Yeah.
But ideally, you don't want it to. There are also bacteria that like to grow on the inside of the pipes. They're called biofilms. And that's,
Yeah, it's
if
bad.
they don't flush and if they don't manage the disinfectant levels properly, those grow more.
Yeah, and it still
So-
wouldn't stop the seepage if you had a crack in the
Yeah.
line. Yeah, see, so
I mean,
you're
you
still
can just
getting,
imagine.
yeah.
That'll show
I
up
think-
in the faucet.
Yeah, so the faucet is sort of like the bottom line. Like everything that, it sort of like sums up everything that's happened to that water,
Yeah.
you know.
The one thing that I don't understand is, I know since the early 80s, they used to send me little cards saying they were out of compliance every year, every year, every year. And I had a drawer full. I lost my home to a flood. But I had a drawer filled with these cards that says, hey, we're out of compliance. Now, we didn't know it until you'd already used it for the year, and then you get a card that says, oh, we was out during, you know, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, what have you. But I had a drawer full of them. Now, if they know they're out of compliance, why don't they know that they need to do something about it? I mean, why even test and say, we're out of compliance, if you're not going to do something about it? If you're out one year, you shouldn't be out of compliance the next year, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after, for years on end.
And you know, that's where we come in. We have to put pressure on the people who are responsible for this. And I mean, I'm so glad so many people showed up at that meeting that we had, because, and your testimony, they listened to your online, by the way.
Well, I'm
And-
glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to it this morning and I read all your comments.
He told me, he said, Mom, you go, you stand up for me. He said, I'm too sick to go.
And I'm a mother. And I know this lady's a good lady. I know this lady.
He's
And
the only
my heart
child
goes
I've
out to her.
got. He's all I've got.
And I know, I mean, I'm a mother, I know. And when I see her cry, it just breaks my heart. It really does. Because, you know, nobody should have to live like this. People in third world countries get better water than people in eastern Kentucky. I mean, we've been bathing. I watched on the news. Somebody in Africa got clean water. They have been begging for help. How can, you know, and I'm so glad y'all here. And I'm thinking, Lord, it's took forever. But if we were a third world country, we could have got it just like this. This is our people. These are people I love. I mean, I really do.
Tested for exactly.
I'm sorry, can
What
you-
chemicals?
So we're going to be testing for pretty much all the metals. So that's something that I do in my lab, and I can do it relatively inexpensively. We're going to be testing for fecal coliform, which will tell us if there's any sewage or bacteria getting in the water. I'm going to be testing for 2 of the main types of disinfection byproducts that they've been out of compliance for, which are called trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. I'm also going to measure some like basic water chemistry, so the pH, the conductivity. I'm going to be looking for nitrate, sulfate, like all the dissolved salts basically. And that's about what we can do with this chunk of money now. We have to focus. I mean, there are thousands, if we tested for every chemical that's regulated by the EPA in drinking water, just testing one sample would cost thousands of dollars. So we really have to make sure that we
It probably
focus on.
doesn't tell us anything.
Yeah, and it wouldn't
The
necessarily.
main things we're going after
Yeah.
will give an indication of quality of water.
Yeah. I mean, one thing right away, if I just measure the electrical conductivity of the water, will tell me right away, you know, if something isn't quite right. So,
Use a humidifier, and
in 30 days, the city water clogged it, it's bad, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I had to take it apart, when I took it apart, I probably got 3 cups of mud out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the mud literally just, it never poured in.
So it looked like soil.
Now, this hasn't happened just in the last 6 months or a year or so. This has been going on for a long time. How long? I used to try one of those filters, and after a while, you just waste your time.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking for the lady who told us that she had a distiller and it burned it up in no time, right? That's what you were talking about.
18 years ago, I did some contracting for a water company. There was a clear well tank around the hill from Dick Young's house. That's water that's been treated. It's already ready to be transported to the homes. We took a float out of that tank. Now this is an aluminum float, about this big around. It was ate up.
Oh,
If
my.
city water does that to aluminum, what's it done to us?
Oh,
Well,
my.
that's what I was
This
gonna
time
ask.
4 years ago, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer.
Oh, my.
So I can relate with all this stuff here. It ain't no fun to be told you got cancer. There's something causing it. What I would like to know, I would love to know any research that's been done comparing what our water is treated with and what Lexington and places like that. You go I was in Bowling Green last week, Sheriff's Convention. You take a shower, you feel clean. You take a shower here, you feel like you got motor oil or something over you. Half the time your soap won't even lather. And we're paying for this stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not blaming the guys that work at the water company. I just think that there's research needs to be done to see if we're treating our water differently than other people are treating theirs. I would say that probably a lot of these other companies, water companies, are getting their water from a lot different source, a lot cleaner source. You know, is the chemicals that we're using, the chlorine and the flocculant and all this, does it actually treat sewer? Because we have plenty of sewer in the Tug River that we're pumping straight into our reservoir that wasn't contaminated before we started pumping out of the creeks and the rivers. You know, I think we should go back to our reservoirs and let God fill the reservoirs, and we don't need to be, you know, we got to build more reservoirs. You know, and the answer to all these water leaks is you can't pump water for 30 miles and expect not to have water leaks, because you've got to turn pressure up and you want to blow old lines.
Yeah.
Build you another water treatment plant, build you one in Wolf Creek, you pump half the water to part of the county, half the water to the other county, and you solve a lot of your water leaks. I know there's been studies done that chlorine causes cancer. It's common knowledge chlorine causes cancer. So the answer in the past is, what did you do when water clogs and fast? Have more chlorine. No, that's not the answer. We need to find out what these other companies are doing to treat their water versus what we're doing to theirs.
But they say up Wolf Creek, mine is even one donate in that PVK pond. They want to take it off and give it to them.
Well, I think, so, one thing I want to say is, again, I'm so happy that you all are here and that so many people are here, so many people have come to all of our meetings, and that so many people showed up the other night at the PSC and PEC meeting on the 29th. What they're going to do, just to make it for valid science, they have to do random samples. You know, it's not going to be directed. You know, they can't promise to come to your house, Desi. So we need to make sure that people are willing to let them come in, and let whoever ends up getting hired to administer the test, we got to make sure that people are willing to answer the questionnaire, do it truthfully, and let them come in and sample the water. And I think that's where we depend on you all. I mean, you all are wonderful, and I'm so glad that you're showing up, and that's important. But you know, you're just a little chunk of the county, and you all need to be talking to your neighbors and letting your neighbors know that this study is going to be happening, that it's important for the whole community, that everyone cooperate, that that's the only way it's going to work. So I hope you'll go away from this meeting and be willing to talk to your neighbors and tell them that this is going to happen, and that folks are going to be coming and knocking on their door, maybe coming and knocking on their doors and wanting to take water samples and ask about their health, and just let them know why that's important.
And I hope there's a lot of the surveys, because I really feel like there are hotspots. I really feel like there are.
There has to be
Well,
something.
if they need
I
to
don't
go
know
talk to
if
them, I
it's the
can get
water.
on some straight.
I can't say with 100% accuracy that it is the water, but, and they tell me the 100% accuracy that it's not the water, it's something. I don't know what, but it is definitely something, and it's affecting my family, my neighbors, it's killing my county. The boss that I worked for 30 years, wonderful woman, she lives up on Wolf Creek. She died of cancer. Our jail we had down here for years, Amy Law Jude, she died of cancer, but she collected her up. He was saying how it ate up the thing. Well, she had a wonderful big cooker because she had a big family, and this wonderful big cooker, and they was going to turn the water off, so she called her up a big kettle full of water. And when she went and emptied her kettle, it looked like some mischievous boys had stood there and shot it on pieces with BBs. I mean, it pitted it so bad. She's like, I won't use this cooker. I mean, she threw the cooker out because it was so pitted up. The water did something, and I mean, that was overnight. Overnight.
And if your water connections are not brass or bronze, it will eat it up.
It ate it up.
I moved in a new double line, and I put pressure regulator on, a directional flow, and on both of those, they were made of brass, but the screws that held it together was not. Within a couple of years, I had to go in and replace it. I went out and bought brand new ones. I made sure it was solid brass or bronze. All the connections in the water system is brass or bronze. And I have not had to replace it yet. And that's been at least 6 years ago. I asked the hardware store, I said, I need something that can stand up to Martin County water. He said, right here you go. He took me right there out of the hardware store, right up here at the mouth of the holler up here, Evans. He said, this is the only thing that'll stand up to Martin County water.
My husband died 6 months ago at the age of 50. He was diagnosed with colon cancer at 48. They don't even screen for colon cancer till you're 50. And I know of 3 people that died recently of colon cancer. And one was in his 30s, one was in his 40s, and then my husband was 50. There's got to be something, I mean.
Yeah, my father-in-law was diagnosed.
That they don't even, they're not supposed to screen for that till you're 50.
Yeah, he was diagnosed.
And he had stage 4 at 48.
He was in his 50s and he died at 62.
Bugs.
Well, does anybody have any more questions about the process, about how this study's gonna go?
Well, one thing I want to say, if they need testing at Tomahawk, I have a trailer on the hill, they can get water there. Just give me a call, I'll accommodate and I'll call my neighbor.
What's your name again?
Gina Patrick.
Gina Patrick.
I'm from Tomahawk in the grassy area there.
When they do come around, make sure they got some kind of identification to identify who they are.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't
You
want
know,
any bogus
like
people.
some kind of linear, something around their neck, or something like that. Here it is.
Yeah, they'll have
A photo ID type thing. You know,
We should let
UK
people in the
or
community
whatever,
know this.
or whoever, you know.
Yeah, we'll like show you all what the ID looks like.
Yeah,
and
maybe
everything.
we'll run an article in the paper before the study begins. The study begins.
If it would be possible, somebody
Yeah, but you guys need to.
Yeah,
part of the reason that it's down there.
yeah.
No, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the things we need to figure out, whether we're gonna hire a local person to do everything, or whether it's gonna be somebody coming from Lexington and working with a local person. But I think one of those two things.
It could be a combination.
Or a combination of the two, It's also we're hoping to get use of the county extension office as sort of like a headquarters for storing some of the samples and things like that. So I'm gonna be working on that. Some of the questions you all have asked about the source water, would be sort of a different thing, but I've talked to our water quality extension specialist, and he kind of more focuses on some of those issues, like developing a source water protection plan and things like that. So I definitely hear those concerns, and I'm conveying them to the people that are trained to deal with that.
There was a coal company in Albany.
We got a lady back here wants to speak too.
Don't know clear.
And I've had cancer twice. Colon cancer, so. And this is only been 7 years since the last time I had it. I don't want it to get back. I'm back in 7 years. And it's almost 7 years again, so I don't want it to come back. So I don't live on Middleton, I live on Milo Road.
Are you Elizabeth Parsons?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming out.